Okay, Be'ez Hashem, in Maseches Berachos, we are going to learn today Nun Ches Amud Aleph 58a, and we're going to start the 6th line on the page from Va'amar Rav Hamnuna. Amar Rav Hamnuna is the 6th line of Nun Ches Amud Aleph 58a, towards the end of the line. Va'amar Rav Hamnuna. Amar Rav Hamnuna. We're going to have 2 sections in today's learning. The first section will discuss 3 types of brachas you make upon seeing many people, upon seeing wise people, and upon seeing kings. The second section will deal with a story with R Shila, where he was potentially going to get punished by the government because he didn't ask permission in administering justice as he saw fit, and he was saved. Then he darshans a pasuk, licha Hashem agdula, talking about the great things Hashem did for the Jewish people in different instances throughout history. So, Be'ez Hashem, let's get started. Again, 6 lines from the top of Nun Ches Amud Aleph. Va'amar Rav Hamnuna. Says the Gemara, Va'amar Rav Hamnuna. Haraya uchlusei Yisrael. If somebody sees multitudes of Jews, he sees many Jewish people. Omer, so he should say the following thing. Baruch Chacham Harazim. He should say, blessed is the wise one who knows secrets. We'll see momentarily why it was called this, but Rashi explains Chacham Harazim means because Hayodea Masha Belev Kol Elu. He knows what's in the hearts of everyone. As you see a lot of people, Hashem knows what each one is thinking. And that is Taka, the greatest secret. We don't even know what we're thinking. Kal v'chomer, we don't even know what other people are thinking. When you see so many people, and each one has their own way of thinking and their own perspective, Kadosh Baruch Hu knows that, and you Taka say a bracha about that. Ochluse, of the Kachavim, he sees multitudes of Goyim, so he says, Busha imchem megoymer, pasuk in Yirmiyah, your mother should be ashamed, etc. Not a very positive connotation. Tanur Rabban, it says the Brisa, Ro uchluse Yisrael, if somebody sees multitudes of Jews, Omer, so he says, Baruch Chacham Harazim. He says this bracha, blessed is Hashem, the wise one who understands what's in each person's heart. Why? Because none of these people have the same perspective. They don't have the same countenance. They each think differently. They are different. And Ben Zoma would add on, he said, Ben Zoma saw multitudes of Jews. We'll see momentarily. This wasn't just lots of them, but actually 600,000. And he saw them on the steps of Har HaBayis. And Omar, he said the following, but he added a little bit. He said, Baruch Chacham Harazim, blessed is Hashem, who is the wise one who knows secrets. Ubarach shebara kol elu l'sham sheni. And blessed is Hashem that he created all of these people to serve me. Now, what do you mean he created all these people to serve me? He didn't say to serve Hashem. He said to serve me, Ben Zoma. So Ben Zoma explained, Hu haya omer, Ben Zoma used to say, Kama yagios yaga Adam Harishon achamatza pas le'echol. How much effort did Adam Harishon have to exert until he had prepared bread to eat? What did he have to do? Charash, he had to plow, vizara and plant, v'katzar and harvest, v'amar and gather, v'dash and thresh, v'zara and winnow, ubarar, and he had to separate, v'tachan and grind, v'hirkid and sift, v'lush and knead, v'af and bake, v'achar kach achal, and then he would be able to eat bread. So he had to do all of that, like a farmer. Va'ani, but Ben Zoma said, I get up and I find all of this prepared in front of me. I go to Publix, and it's all ready. And we're going to see actually even more so, because he had people preparing these things for him. He was a wealthy man. As we'll see in a moment, everything was brought to him. And furthermore, how much effort did Adam have to invest before he was able to wear clothing? Gazaz, he would shear the sheep, v'lavan, and clean the wool, v'nafat, and untangle the wool, v'tava, and then spin it, v'arag, and weave it, v'achar kach matzah beged lilbash, and then finally, he'd have a garment to wear. And I get up in the morning and everything's at my entrance. Rashi says he was a wealthy man, so everybody came to him to sell him merchandise. So Ben Zoma was saying I have appreciation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving me a world that's full of everything that I need and prepared for me, and actually that's part of the godless, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu put all these people here. Baruch Chacham Harazim is all these people l'sham sheni. It's akar satoif. Continues Ben Zoma, Kol Umay, some of the Girsa Umanios, all the nations or all of the professions, Shoktus Ubos LePesach Besi, they all come to the entrance of my house, and it's all prepared, and I just get up and have it all prepared in front of me. On a similar note, Ben Zoma used to say, in the concept of a parable, the difference between a good guest and a bad guest. As we're about to see, a good guest notes and appreciates the work of the Balabayis. So, and a bad guest, the opposite. What's that? A bad guest, the opposite.
Oh, the balbosta.
The balabosta, right. The host or the hostess. But in a similar vein, Ben Zoma, through a parable, was mentioning the fact... That's weird. Was mentioning the fact that in this world, we're guests of Hashem. Hashem's the balabayis. So, a good guest would recognize all of the wonderful things that Hashem did for us in this world, and thus have akar satoif. So Hu Omer, he used to say, Nun Ches Amud Aleph, about 4 or 5 lines down the wide lines. Hu Omer, he used to say, what does a good guest say? Now again, it's a parable, but the idea really is like we're guests in Hashem's world, so we have to be good guests and thank Him. What does a good guest say? He says, how much effort did the balabayis invest because of me? Kama basar hevi lefanai. How much meat did he bring in front of me? Kama yayin hevi lefanai. How much wine did he bring in front of me? Kama gluska ois hevi lefanai. How much rolls of bread did he bring in front of me? The kol masha tarach letarach ela b'shvili. He has to recognize, a good guest recognizes, all of the efforts of the balabayis were done for me, and they have appreciation. But what does a bad guest say? What efforts did this balabayis do? I ate 1 piece of bread. 1 piece of meat. 1 cup of to drink. All of the efforts that balabayis did, it was for his own wife and children, it wasn't for me. So it's the difference between makir tov and kafoy tov. That's the distinction here. So in a similar vein, in this world, we're guests of Hashem. So Ben Zoma was saying, we have to have akaras tov for all the things that Hashem gives us, like oreach tov. And based on this, the psukim, there's 2 psukim that highlight these 2 virtues. Al oreach tov ma'omer. About a good guest, the pasuk says in Eov, Zechor kisaski po'aloi. Remember and aggrandize, make greater, make great his work, Hashem's work. Recognize it. Asher shoru anashim, so that people see the great wonders of Hashem. Al reach raksi, but about a bad guest, the pasuk says, Lachein yiruhu anashim begomer. It says men will fear him and they won't appreciate what he's doing. So that's a bad guest. You don't have appreciation. Now, in a discussion or a related discussion about this ochlosi, which is multitudes of people, pasuk tells us in Shmuel Aleph, "V'ha'ish b'imei Shaul zakin baba anashim." There was a man in the days of Shaul who was old or elder, baba anashim. He would go amongst people. So Amar Rava explained, "V'itemer Rav Zvid, v'itemer Rav Oshaya, ze Yishai avi David." This refers to Yishai, who was the father of David HaMelech. Sheyatza be'ochlusa. When he would leave, he would go out with many people. We'll see, it's a large number. V'nichnas be'ochlusa, and he would enter with a lot of people, because he was a chashuv person. V'darash be'ochlusa, and he also expound Torah in public, in front of many people. Amar Ula says, Nakitzin, we have a tradition. The halacha is, ein ochlusa be'bavel. Now, literally, it means is that there's no 600,000 people. There's no multitudes of people in Bavel. But the Mefarshim say it means is we don't make the bracha that we would say in Eretz Yisrael upon seeing a gathering of people like we do in Bavel. In Bavel, we don't do it. We only do it in Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because the whole idea really is to give akaras tov. We appreciate Hashem, but that's really more so effective in Eretz Yisrael. In Bavel, we're in Galus. In Galus, it's not as felt. It's lacking in a certain sense. So we wouldn't make that bracha. Tana, the Brisa says, to finish off this point, when we talk about uchlusa, there's no uchlusa that's less than shishim ribo. It's the 600,000 people. So if you see a group of 600,000 people l'chayra in Eretz Yisrael, you would make a bracha like that. I don't know if there's ever been a group of 600,000 people gathered together. Has there been in Eretz Yisrael in its history? I mean, recent history, I should say.
We left Egypt, we were.
I'm saying in the last 100 years, has there been?
Now Erev Shabbos by the Kotel, there are
600,000 people.
600, but
not even close.
It's a multitude.
Yeah, but 600. Rav Chaim Zlevaya was there? Was there?
I don't know.
Maybe Ravad Yosef. Ravad Yosef might have
Definitely
been.
there was.
Now that Mile is came to.
It could be Ravad Yosef.
Did you hear the president of Argentina went to the Kotel? He's converting.
Is he?
Yeah. But they say they tell him to wait. They tell him to wait until after he's finished with Argentina. They don't want him in the middle.
Let's go weiter. Says the Brisa. So this was when you see multitudes of people. Now let's talk about seeing chachamim. You see chachamim. I think this means very high level chachamim. But you see chacham, you make a bracha. If somebody sees Jewish chachamim, so he says, Baruch shecholak mechachmasa li're'av. He says a bracha, Baruch Hashem, blessed is Hashem, that he gave part of his own chachma to those who fear him. Now there's a specific emphasis as cholak. Cholak means a portion of his own chachma. The Torah is like das Hashem. It's the wisdom of Hashem. So he imbued that in basar v'dam, in people. As opposed to chachmei avdei kachavim, if you see the wise of the non-Jews, so Omer then he says a bracha, but it's different. Baruch shenasan mechachmas lebrei Yosef. Right, they're not learning Torah. So he gave from his wisdom to the creatures, to creations. But you don't say cholak because that's not a chelik of him. That's not the Torah. And similarly with kings, Araya Malchei Yisrael. If you see the Jewish kings, Omer, so the bracha you say is Baruch shecholak mikvay delireyav. Blessed is Hashem. Again, he gave a portion of his own kavod because a Jewish king is a chelik of that kavod comes from Hashem to those who fear him. And also the same idea as before with non-Jewish king. Malchei Ovdei Kochavim. If you see the non-Jewish kings, Omer, you say, Baruch shenasan mikvod delireyav. He gave from his honor to his creatures.
Do you make such a bracha for a bad king?
I would imagine king? If it's a real king, you would.
For a real Jewish bad king.
I don't know.
He's not
it's a good question. He's not Yereyav, you're saying. Yeah. That's a good question. Because it doesn't distinguish here.
I mean, you wouldn't say the bracha out loud or keep it quiet. But.
It does not distinguish here. It's an interesting question. You're asking is, would you say this for a Russia king? I don't know. That's an interesting question. Let's see.
Unfortunately,
we had many. All of Malachim came out is full of it.
I'm saying, unfortunately, we had. So it's
more than less.
Right. So I'm saying it's like...
I don't know. It's a good question.
We had more bad ones.
Yeah.
Good thing they didn't learn enough. So.
Let's go weiter, Chevra. We got a lot to cover here. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, these are large letter. That's very long. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, La'olam yishtadel adam laretz likras malchi Yisrael. Very famous memra. Many places this memra. A person should put effort to run to greet Jewish kings, likras malchi Yisrael bilvav, but not just Jewish kings, elafil likras malchi avdei kachavim, but even non-Jewish kings. If there's a non-Jewish king passing by, run to see. Why? She'im yizkeh, as Rashi says, because if he'll merit to olam haba in the times of Mashiach, so yavchin bein malchi Yisrael and malchi avdei kachavim, he'll be able to distinguish between the glory that the kings, the Jewish kings, and the Shomrei Torah mitzvahs, and the reward they get in the next world, and the glory of the nations of this world. The Gemara tells us a related story with Rav Sheshis. Rav Sheshis was blind. Rav Sheshis sagi nahor hava. Rav Sheshis literally means he was full of light, but it's a euphemistic terminology. Even the word sagi nahar actually is used to denote euphemism in Shas. So he was a blind person. So the nation, all the people were going to greet a king. And he also wanted to go along with them. The Kamaz Rav Sheshis wanted to go along with them. So there was a certain Tzeduki that found him, and he wanted to make fun of Rav Sheshis. So he said, what are you doing? You're blind. You can't see the king anyway, so where are you going? The Tzedukim not only messed up the Torah, but they also were a pain in the sides of the Chachamim constantly. So Amar Le, so the Tzeduki said to Rav Sheshis, Chitzvi l'nara, the intact vessels go to the river, but Kagni Elaya, but where does the broken vessel go? It means, why are you going? Where are you going to see? You can't see. So Amar Rav Sheshis said to the Tzeduki, come and I'll show you, I'll be more aware of where the king is than you, and I don't even see him. You're right. So what happened? They were waiting for the king to pass by, and there were different waves of his caravan, or his entourage. So Chalaf Gunda Kamaisa, the first wave of the entourage of the king came. What's it called? Procession, but what's it called when the president goes? Not a blockade, it's called, what? Motorcade, thank you, motorcade. Kika Avasha, now there was a loud noise, and the first wave passed by. So Amr Lehu Tzeduki, Asamalka, so maybe the king's coming. So Rav Sheshis Lokasi, he's not coming. And he couldn't see, obviously, but he knew. Chalaf Gonda Tinyana, the second wave of the motorcade passed by. Kika Avasha, and there was a loud noise. So Amr Lehu Tzeduki, the Tzeduki said again, Hashtakasi Malka, now the king's coming. Amr Lehu Sheshis Lokasi Malka. No, not the time. And he was right. Now the third wave of the motorcade passed by, and it was quiet. So then the Tzeduki was quiet because he thought, I just say it again, I'll look foolish. But Amr Rav Sheshis said, Vadai Hashtasi Malka. Now the king is certainly arriving. Meaning this is his wave. Why? Amr Rav Tzeduki, how'd you know that? Mitaka was right, but how did you know? So Amr Rav Sheshis said, because the kingship or the malchus, the worldly kings are reflective or similar to malchus of the heavens, of Hashem's malchus. Where do we find that concept? As it says regarding Eliyahu Hanavi. Pasuk tells us regarding Eliyahu Hanavi that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to appear to him. And it says, Tseva amarata bahar lifnei Hashem. Go and stand. Eliyahu was being commanded. Stand in the mountain in front of Hashem. V'hini Hashem oiver. And Hashem is going to pass. V'ruach gedala v'chazak. And there's going to be a great powerful wind. Mefare karim that's going to smash the mountains. Meshaber sloim lifnei Hashem. And it's going to break rocks going in front of Hashem. But lo beruach Hashem. Hashem will not be in that great wind. V'achar ruach ra'ash. And after the wind will be a earthquake. V'lo beruach Hashem. But Hashem will not be lo beruach Hashem. Hashem's not in the earthquake. V'achar rash eish. And after the earthquake, there's going to be fire. But lo be'eish Hashem. Hashem is not in the fire. V'achar eish called demama daka. After the fire, there's going to be a still, silent sound. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be there. So Rav Sheshes knew, since the Malchus on this world is reflective of that Malchus, that's when the Malchus would come. Beautiful.
That's when Eliyahu, right? That he had complaints on Kol Israel.
Eliyahu, he had a conversation.
Right.
I believe so.
That he complained.
Hashem gave him Musar.
Yeah.
Ki asa malka. Now when the king passed by, is that your phone? Ki asa malka. When the king passed by, pasach Rav Sheshes to come mevarichle. So Rav Sheshes wanted to say a bracha. So Amar le'ahu tzeduki. So Tzeduki turned to Rav Sheshes and says, L'mando lechazes le'kam mevareches. The one you don't see, you're giving a bracha to. So the Gemara tells us, or ultimately this Tzeduki mocked Rav Sheshes. So the Gemara says, "Umay have alei da'u Tzeduki." What ended up happening with that Tzeduki?
Wait, so Rav Sheshes wanted to...
He made the bracha. He made the bracha. He made the bracha. So what happened with that Tzeduki? Umay have alei da'u Tzeduki. He didn't have a very pleasant ending. Some say, "Chavroi kachlinu le'ene." Either literally means his friends painted his eyes, but it really means his friend gouged out his eyes. The Ikadami or others say, Rav Sheshes nasan enov boivin asegal shanat samais, that Rav Sheshes looked at him, and when a chacham like this looks at you, it's not a good thing. He turned into a pile of bones, he ended up dying. Let's move on to the second section now. The Gemara tells us a story with Rav Shila now. Rav Shila, nagdelahu gavra debal mitzvahs. Rav Shila gave malchus to a certain person who had relations with a mitzvah, a non-Jewish woman. So he gave malchus in Bezdin to this person. Now, as we're going to see, Rav Shila wasn't empowered by the government to administer justice like this, to adjudicate cases. And this person who received malchus got upset, and he went and told the government that he's taking authority without being authorized. But interesting, I just learned the Gemara in Sanhedrin actually that says that the Reish Galusa was empowered by the kings of Paras, and thus they were actually able to administer judgment. It means they were empowered b'chlal because the Jews empowered them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu empowers them. They were able to administer because they weren't fearful of that government like that. But the point is as follows. He gave malchus to this guy who had relations with the mitzvahs. So this fellow went and he ratted out Rav Shila to the government. Amar, he told the government, that there's a certain person in the Jews, amongst the Jews, who's administering justice without your authority.
He was a maser.
A maser. Sadar ale pristika. So the government sent a message to Rav Shila that he has to appear in front of their emissaries in another court. So Ki Asa and Rav Shila appeared. Amri le. So they said to Rav Shila, "My time in Agata Talahai. Why'd you give the guy malchus? You're not allowed." So Amr Lehusa, he said back to them, "Debal chamarta," because he had relations with a donkey. And now they knew he'd be maskim to this. So what happened? So Amr le, they said to him, "Isla chasadi, do you have witnesses? You have proof? Witnesses?" So Amr Lewin, yeah. So Eliyahu Hanavi shows up in the nick of time, pretending to be a witness, and he testified, no problem. So Amrilei, so the court there said,
takes a lower role.
He did. Amrilei, so the court said to Rav Shila, okay, so you have raya, but if that's true, Barktolo is chayav misa. As far as we're concerned, he's boal and achamor chayav misa. So Amrilahu, so Rav Shila said, oh, this is Mamish Megillah, we have this Indian. Anon me'arin, from the time that we've been exiled from our land, we don't have the Sanhedrin, Lislan Reshus Lemiktal. We can't administer capital punishment. Atun ma'ideba yisun avdisubei. Whatever you want to do, you could do. You're in charge. You could do what you want. Now the guy was not killed, as we're about to see. Now, the other court was examining what to do with this fellow. Pasach of Shila v'Amar. So if Shila opened up with a pasuk in Divrei Yom, we say in the davening, L'cha Hashem agdula v'agevura v'goyim Hashem, greatness and power is all to you. So he was whispering this. So Amrilei, so the court turned to Rav Shila and they said, Ma'ika Amrit, what are you saying? So Amalahu, he said, Achikami, this is what I was saying. Brich Rachmana de Yoav Malchusa Ba'ara Ke'en Malchusa Durakia. Blessed is Hashem that he created Malchus on earth like Malchus in heaven, the Yoav Lechus Shulchatana, and gave this authority V'Racha Medina to those who love justice, meaning you guys are doing a great job and I support you. So the people, the court there, the non-Jewish court said, you love the honor of the king so much. Wonderful. They gave him a rod, they gave him a stick, and they said to him, don't dina, do whatever you want with this guy, with his malshin, with this guy who came and told on you, you're all in the right. Now, he didn't kill him yet, as we're about to see. When R Shila was leaving that court, Amr Le'ahu Gavra, that guy who had a relation with the mitzvahs and had been malshin, and R Shila said to R Shila, Avid Rachmana Nisa L'Shakri Hachi, does the Hashem do a miracle for lies like this? I didn't have a relation with a donkey. You made something up and Hashem made a miracle for you? So Amr Le'ahu Shila said, Rosh Alav Chamar Yikru, aren't the non-Jewish people called Chamor? Where do we find it? Like it says, Asher Basa Chamarim Psaram, the flesh of donkeys is their flesh. So the Gemara says what was going to happen, he saw that this guy was going to go back to the government and be malshin. Look, he's calling you guys chamayrim. So he said, what? Amar, hayroidifu. Oh, now he's a roidif. Atayra Amar, the Torah says, so he said, now I have to kill him because he's trying to get me killed. He hit him with that stick and he killed him. So Shila said, Amar avidli nisa b'haikra. Since a miracle happened to me in regards to this pasuk, Hashem agdula pasuk in Divrei Yomim, Darishno, I want to now darshan the pasuk, expound the verse. So now he's going to go through each part of the pasuk and miracles that happened for the Jewish people that Hashem did for us throughout history. Hashem agdula, the beginning of the pasuk, for you Hashem is the greatness. Zumaisa Berachos, that's creation of the world. Like it says, right, in Eov it refers to creation of the world, which is gedolos, without beyond comprehension. Vagevura, the next part of the pasuk, Vagevura is Yitzias Mitzrayim. It refers to leaving Egypt. Shenemar, it says, Vayar Yisrael Yarak Darla V'Goymer. It says the great things that Hashem did for the Jewish people, and this is a reference to the Gevura of Hashem. V'atiferes, what?
Because the Shemanesra Gevura is Tchias Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing,
yeah. Yitzias Mitzrayim. Right here. That is basically one kindness. Yeah,
we say in Shemanesra when they say it's Gevura, it's like Berachos.
Yes, Mitzrayim, huh? Taka.
Maybe it's
Gevuras. The Gemara there is Mafteach.
Like Rosh Hashanah says, the Jews were dead.
They were dead people.
Yeah.
It was Tchias Amazing. Chiddush. Vatiferes, and that's the next part of the pasuk. The glory is to you. Zu. This refers to the sun and the moon that stood in the sky when Yeshua was fighting against the enemies in Eretz Yisrael, the Canaanim or the Amorim, whoever they were. Like the pasuk says, the sun and the moon stood in the sky, they stopped where they were. And it says, and victory is to you. Zuma palasa shel Raimi. This refers to the downfall of Rome. Rome is Edom. We just learned the Megillah actually. Rome is the descendants of Esau. Like it says, and this is a prophecy how in the end of days, Baruch is going to destroy Edom, wipe out Rome, which is the descendants. V'yez nitzcham al begadai v'goymer. It's a euphemism, or it's a allegory, but it says their lifeblood will sprinkle on my garment, referring to the destruction of Rome. V'hahoid, the pasuk continues and says, and hahoid, his glory, zu melchemes nachle arno. We spoke about this earlier. Melchemes nachle arno, and the Jews were crossing into Eretz Yisrael, they're traveling towards Eretz Yisrael, and the Amorim went to the top of the mountain. They were going to throw down stones, and the mountains crushed them. Like it says, Al-Keni Yomer b'Sefer Melchamas Hashem is Vahav b'Sufa v'Goymer. Explained, Vav and Suf, S and Vahav and Hav were these two Jews that told over the miracle that had occurred, as we explained earlier. Because everything in heaven and earth, Zu Melchemes Sisra, this refers to the battle with Sisra. When Sisra, leading the Canaanite army, fought against the Jews, we know the whole story, with the Shira of Devaira, we know the whole story. That was last week's Haftarah, right? That was the Haftarah. Beautiful. Like it says in the pasuk, from heavens the stars fought from their courses. And Farshim speak out of here. In that story, what happened was Hashem made the stars shine very brightly, so it was very hot. Those nations, the Canaanim, got very hot. They went into the water, Nachal Kishain, and then it swept them away, and the Jews were saved from their enemies. The pasuk continues and says, to you Hashem is kingship. Zu milchemes Amalek. This refers to the war with Amalek. Like it says, ki yad al kes ka, because Hashem's hand is on his throne. Ka, we know, as Rashi there explains, is only when Amalek will be destroyed will Hashem's name be Shalim and his throne be Shalim. V'hamisnase, and elevated. Zu milchemes Gog u'Magog. This refers to the war in the end of days with Gog from Magog. Gog was from the country or province of Magog. Like it says, Hineni elecha Gog, I am against you, Hashem says. Gog, Nasi Rosh Meshech v'Tuval, who was the head of the province of Meshech and Tuval. Lechol l'Rosh, it says, the pasuk continues and says, for all Hashem will be the head. Amar Rav Chanan bar Rav, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu Reish Gargisa min Shemaya Manule. Even the head of the irrigation systems, Rashi says it means, the people who used to dig the ditches for the water systems, even that is appointed from Shemayim. Hashem is l'chol l'rosh, meaning any head that's elected is ordained from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the pshat. Hashem is melech malchei amlachim. He's the king of kings. It means Hashem makes malachim, but not just malachim. We're saying any people in the positions of authority. That was all Rav Shila expounding the verse. But in a brayso it was taught in the name of Rabbi Akiva, a little bit of a different way to darshan the verse, which is this refers to Zukriyas Yamsuf, referring to the splitting of the Yamsuf. Va'gevura zu makas becharis refers to the death of the firstborn. Va'tiferes, glory zu matan Torah. Va'hanetzach, what was the victory or the glory of the Jewish people? Zu Yerushalayim, it was the city of Yerushalayim. Va'ahoid, and their ultimate glory, zu Beis HaMikdash, that was the Jews' ultimate glory. We'll stop here the bottom, Nunches Amud Aleph. We'll pick up tomorrow with Nunches Amud Beis. Be'ez Hashem, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Kasha.